Hello, I'm your host Jim McClean. Welcome back to another episode of the BanterFlix movie review show here on NvTv. Let's see what movies we'll be talking about tonight. We'll be reviewing The Fall Guy, which is out in cinemas now. Our pick of the streams is Jerry Seinfeld's Unfrosted, which is streaming on Netflix. And our documentary season kicks off with Alan Meban's choice, Whitney, Can I Be Me? So that's what I've lined up for you this evening, and joining me here in the NvTv studio tonight is Claire McCullough.
Hi Jim.
And Phil Higginson.
Hello.
Hello to you both. As always, every week we try to cram as much as we can into half an hour, so let's kick off with a bit of movie news.
Where is the horn that was blowing? They have passed like rain on the mountains, like wind in the meadow. The days have gone down in the west, behind the hills, into shadow.
So that's a bit of Bernard Hill in action in Lord of the Rings as King Theoden of Rohan. Sad news over the weekend of his passing, so I thought it only right that we played a little bit from the film. Now, Claire, you said to us before we started to record, you're not a massive Lord of the Rings fan. Nobody's perfect, but you did, when we mentioned him, you did say that's the actor from Titanic, the captain of the ship, so you're aware of him.
Oh yeah, definitely aware of him. He broke my heart whenever I was about 6 years old, whenever the Titanic came out. Ruined my Christmas. But yeah, no, it's very, very sad.
And Phil, when we're coming up on the lift up into the studio here, because hey, NvTv spares no expense, you and I were both saying that you're like me, you're a big fan of Lord of the Rings and Bernard Hill.
Huge fan of Lord of the Rings. I got to see Return of the King in the cinema again a couple of weeks ago, and his performance was as powerful as ever. Absolutely incredible as King Theoden, so really sad to see him go.
Yeah, it was sad, and I know we had him on the show last week, and I know Bill Taylor can be a little bit outspoken. You know, he started life on our show as the grumpy gamer, and he's evolved into just a general all-round grumpy person. But I remember many moons ago, Bill telling me about a little meeting at one of the Comic-Cons with Bernard Hill. So I reached out to Bill and asked him to share that anecdote with you.
Hi folks, Bill here from the Sixth Sense and Ghostbusters Northern Ireland. I've been asked to do a little bit about meeting Bernard Hill. Met Bernard at Northern Ireland Comic Con last year. Myself and my wife Elaine, we went along and we got a wee selfie and had a wee chat with Bernard. She knew him more from Titanic and Boys from Black stuff. I, of course, knew him as King Theoden from the Lord of the Rings films. So, had a nice little chat with Bernard, and I mentioned that I played the Middle-earth strategy battle game, which is a tabletop game. And I said, I play with a wee man of you. And he was like, really? And I showed him a photo of the model that I have painted of King Theoden. And then, as a wee side caveat, I said to him, yeah, but unfortunately, I don't seem to win very many games with you. And he gave a little chuckle and he says, that sounds about right. God bless you, Bernard. Hail King Theoden. And you will be missed.
So that's Bill talking about Bernard Hill, and I know we have loads of stuff we want to get talking about. Claire, you're very excited to talk about The Fall Guy, I know, but earlier this week we also had our first official glimpse of Kal-El, Superman, David Corenswet. I think he looks the part. I mean, I was talking about this last week with Christopher Reeve. Christopher Reeve will always be Superman for me. I do love Henry Cavill. You know, he's a big nerd like all of us, just happens to be a big hunky nerd. But yeah, I mean, I was sad to see him go, but I think David looks the part. Phil, has this grabbed your interest?
I think he looks great. I'm excited to see what James Gunn's going to do with him. James Gunn seems to really understand comic books, seems to really have a vision in mind for what he wants to do with comic book movies. I think we're in for a good time.
Claire, I know we get you on the show, and I think a couple of months ago we had you on, and I think we used it in one of the trailers for the show, where you said like Marvel and DC should just give up. You're kind of done with superhero movies. But has this first glimpse of a new Kal-El, of a new Superman, you going to be there opening night next year?
I don't think I'm going to be there for opening night, but I do really like James Gunn as a director. He's done a lot of amazing films with Marvel. Maybe not so much with Suicide Squad, but I'm quite intrigued to see how this film pans out. I like Nicholas Hoult, and yeah, I think I'm not going to give up on comic book films just yet. With the new Joker coming out, and of course the new Superman, but I won't be there on opening night.
Well, there you go. At least James, if you're watching, Claire still believes in you. And I know you just mentioned just before we started to record that we got our first glimpse of the new Michael Jackson in the upcoming biopic.
Yeah. So they released photos for that. I think it was this week, and the resemblance is uncanny. Like, it looks like it's going to be good. I didn't catch the name of the actor that's playing Michael Jackson. But it seems to be a real rise of biopics right now. Maybe my superhero fatigue is going to move across to biopic fatigue. Watch this space, huh?
We're going to have to wait and see. I mean, we've had the Amy Winehouse biopic recently. I mean, they are always box office fodder. And also, I mean, we've talked about this before, Academy fodder as well. So we'll have to wait and see when the film's released. And I think with that, we'll move on from talking about films that are yet to be released. Let's move on and chat about something we've all seen.
Why are you here?
I think there's been a misunderstanding.
Clearly.
Because I was under the impression that you did want me here.
That's a delusional thought. We haven't spoken in a year.
I'm happy for you. This whole director thing looks good on you. Even the gardening hat, somehow.
Everyone wears them. It's like a set thing. Okay?
Yeah, I see it. They're not making it look as good as you are, that's all. And I'm not trying to be flat. I'm just saying the facts. But you look good in everything. You look good in nothing, whatever. No, I don't mean
really?
it like that. But
This
you do look good in nothing.
This isn't going to work.
You do, but it's not what I'm...
So that's a look at The Fall Guy. It's out in cinemas now, loosely based on the 80s TV show with Lee Majors. Now we have Ryan Gosling, Emily Blunt, the lovely Hannah Waddingham. Hannah, if you're watching, hello. Claire, you were just saying off air, we make you out to be a bit of a diva, but you did demand to be on this show, because the last time we had you on, you actually got your diary out and you looked, hang on, when's The Fall Guy out? Oh, I'm going to be on the show that week. So I guess this is the point, logically, where we come to you and we hope the film hasn't disappointed, because the last couple of times we've had you on the show, some of the films we've got you to review, they haven't been for you, you haven't enjoyed them, some you've even fell asleep during. So what did you think of The Fall Guy?
I absolutely adored it. Like, no notes whatsoever. It was incredible. I genuinely thought it was a masterpiece. Which I'm so happy about, because I remember the other time that I demanded to have a show during the summer, when you guys normally don't really have a show during the summer. I was slightly disappointed. It was Thor or something like this. This one lived up and surpassed my expectations. I actually think it's my favourite film of the year so far. It was just so fun. It was silly. The cinematography was incredible. The plot was amazing. The dialogue was great. Ryan Gosling was his best self. Emily Blunt was incredible. Their chemistry was amazing. I can't really think of any flaws whatsoever. And the music was so good as well. That scene where they had the cover of I Was Made for Loving You by Kiss, and it was just so dramatic and powerful. It was incredible. I loved it so much. And not only did I just love it, the guys sitting behind me in the cinema, they loved it too. So I feel like Ryan Gosling can do no wrong. And he's found his niche. Like, he is this action, comedy, rom-com star. And he's coming for Tom Cruise's job.
Tom better watch out. Now, I agree with a lot of things that you said there. I wouldn't go as far as saying that this is a masterpiece. I enjoyed it. I think, like you, I think Ryan Gosling can do no wrong. Hello, Ryan, if you're watching. He is enough for me. I've said that before. I thought he was absolutely fab in Barbie, but I've loved him from even like stuff from Drive, and we've seen him. He's just one of those annoyingly talented people that can do anything and get up on stage in the Oscars and sing, or he can kind of go off and be the gritty action star or do comedy. I don't know. He's bound to have a flaw somewhere. But in my heart of hearts, I think this film's too long. I enjoyed it, and I was saying to you before we started to record, I think they've already started to talk about a sequel. It's done enough at the box office. There's been, a lot of critics raving about it. It's probably kind of the silly blockbuster season that we're in now. It's, yes, the best I've seen so far. I genuinely wish that I was the person, Claire, sitting behind you in the cinema having as much as fun as you, because I went to see it at a late screening, and I know near the end, at about 10 o'clock, I did find myself going, how long's left of this? But hey, that's me. Phil, Claire loved it. I'm sitting on the fence on this. I think it's fine. I think it's a 3-star movie. Where you went in?
I loved this. It was, from beginning to end, it was just an absolute romp. I don't know what I can say that isn't just going over what Claire's already said. I suppose I'll have to focus in on the action choreography as a particular high point. The running sort of meta-narrative of it's a movie about filmmaking. I loved it. It didn't wink at the audience too much, but they got real creative because of it with the action, like seeing what the characters can do with a gun full of blanks and a big rubber axe, and then all building up to the finale, which I don't think was too much. I loved it. Involving the stunt team, Winston Duke as well as the stunt team leader. Fantastic. Setting up their, the airbags and the wires that would usually pull the men away from explosions and such. Loved it. Loved seeing all that kind of thing getting brought into the movie. And then even during the credits, getting to see the behind the scenes of the stunts. A real little tip of the hat to the actual stunt team involved in the movie. I don't want to give too much away as well, but Lee Majors getting his little nod. Beautiful.
I think, like you say, it's all about filmmaking, but it's also a good old-fashioned rom-com wrapped up in an action movie. That's why it, for me, has nods to Romancing the Stone, all those kind of classic movies. I liked it. I genuinely wish I liked it as much as you two. But with that, we're going to have to move on from the big screen to the small screen as we talk about this week's Pick of the Streams.
Ground control, we are go for launch. T-minus 3, 2, 1. Lift off.
I believe we have split the atom of breakfast. In the early 1960s, the American morning was defined by milk and cereal. And the two undisputed giants of the cereal world were Kellogg's and Post.
Major news from the breakfast world. The Post Cereal Company has reportedly invented a shelf-stable fruit pastry breakfast product.
No.
Yeah.
Boy.
It's Post. They did it.
I'm about to finally crush that big red K that never stops glaring at me.
So that's a look at Unfrosted, the story that we didn't know we needed to know about the origins of sorts of Pop-Tarts, the rivalry during the 60s that came about with the iconic creation. This is very much a pet project for Jerry Seinfeld. He's wanted to make this for years. I am a massive fan of Jerry Seinfeld. I love Seinfeld. I know Larry Sanders is involved with that project as well. That is probably my sitcom when people talk about Friends. I loved Seinfeld. So I was looking forward to this. I'm going to hold just back on my judgments just for now. Phil, the last time we were talking about Fall Guy, you were waxing lyrical about that film. Where are you gonna come down on Unfrosted?
I like this. It wouldn't have been a movie I would have ever picked out. I will preface this by saying apologies in advance. Do not like Jerry Seinfeld. He doesn't do it for me. I felt he had a definite idea in his head of what he wanted to do with this movie, and I think he nailed it. It's a comedy in the vein of Airplane or the recent Weird Al Yankovic biopic, which was entirely fabricated as well. But it was, I would say, a good half the jokes landed. But when there's as many jokes in a movie as there is in Unfrosted, I think that's a decent ratio. Like, as soon as I started to get bored of something, there'd be another wacky adventure and another silly cameo. I quite enjoyed it for that, for what it was. I'll probably never watch it again, but I've had worse Sunday afternoons. Very 90s feeling. Right down to having outtakes during the credits at the end. I like that touch. I don't know why, but that does it for me.
We're talking a lot about the end credits for movies rather than the movies itself this week. I'm with you in this. I mean, I love Seinfeld. I have a weird obsession, as does my lovely wife, with the B movie. I know he didn't direct that. He wrote that weird animated movie when you sit down and actually look at the kind of screenplay and what's going on. It's a weird film. The B movie is weird and bizarre. This is weird and bizarre. I am a fan of absurdist comedy. You mentioned the likes of Airplane, or the likes of, I suppose another example would be like the Naked Gun movies. Leslie Nielsen, great slapstick humour that's silly for silly's sake. Great talent involved. You know, Jerry Seinfeld, this is his directorial debut. You've got the likes of Amy Schumer, Melissa McCarthy is there. There's a lot of familiar faces popping up. Some will not ruin with in terms of the cameos. And I came out of it going, it's fine. It's fine. It's perfectly serviceable. Probably in the same way, maybe it's just the mood I've been in this week with the Fall Guy. I thought it was fine. Fall Guy, yes, much better film than this. I wanted it to be funnier, and I know Jerry Seinfeld's humour does not land for everybody. I love the simple premise of shows he does, like Comedians in Cars, Getting Coffee. Simple premise, just people talking and telling jokes to each other. He's that type of person. I know there's some people kind of talk about personal life with Jerry Seinfeld. BanterFlix movie review show isn't where we're going to go down with that. But I thought it was fine. And I'm a little bit disappointed because of the fact this is a pet project he's wanted to make for so long. I thought it would be better. Claire, you had the time of your life, it seems, with the masterpiece, the cinematic masterpiece of 2024 so far with The Fall Guy. What about Unfrosted?
I didn't really like that film, to be perfectly honest. I'm sorry, guys. I'm not a big Melissa McCarthy or Amy Schumer fan to begin with. I couldn't take it seriously enough to actually watch it. Although stylistically it looks really good and it's sort of 90s feel, and there is some really good cameos on it. I just couldn't get into it at all. It felt like it was trying so hard and that there was very little substance, so they were falling on the cameos to kind of raise the bar and get people to enjoy it, and it just kind of, it felt really fake or something. Or forced comedy. I don't know, I didn't really enjoy it that much, but I can understand people that are a fan of all of the actors and the people that have cameos in the show that would like it, but it just wasn't for me. I don't really think that there needs to be a show about cornflakes and Pop-Tarts and things like that, you know?
Hey, we've had stranger origin movies. I mean, I think last year we had the origin of Nike Air and kind of those kind of iconic trainers. But look, so I think a mixed bag tonight on our pick of the streams. We'll be looking to see what we talk about next week on another streaming platform. But for now, we are going to wrap up. And last month, we had our Shakespeare on Screen season. And I know last week we took a little break and we had our Free Comic Book Day special, but in preparation for Docs Ireland happening here in Belfast next month, we thought here at BanterFlix we would showcase each week a different documentary one of our contributors or a local filmmaker or someone in the industry would recommend a documentary for us to talk about and to maybe recommend to our viewers at home. And first up for this month, it's the lovely Alan Meban with his choice.
I did not go into the studio wanting to make a pop album.
She was closer to her dad.
But Whitney had the career that her mother always wanted.
So I go.
Whitney was from the hood. Bobby was street. They just had a chemistry that worked for them.
I'll think of you.
Robin loved her, cared for her, was a friend to her.
The way
Success doesn't change you. Fame does.
One documentary that sticks with me, and I struggle not to think about it when I hear one of the artist's songs, is Whitney, Can I Be Me? It's not the world's most elaborate film, and certainly isn't uplifting, but I long remember sitting in the Glasgow Film Theatre one afternoon back in June 2017. I had a few hours to kill before catching the sleeper train to London. There's no narration other than a few captions. Instead, there is unseen behind the scenes footage captured at a 1999 concert in Frankfurt, woven in with copious clips from radio and television appearances, and interviews with family, friends, and music industry colleagues. They're all sewn together to make a rather devastating picture of a pop star's life and death, aged 48 in 2012. She's perhaps best known for her soaring single, I Will Always Love You, a Dolly Parton cover, which featured in the film The Bodyguard. Dead singers with great back catalogues are prime candidates for biopics and documentaries. Freddie Mercury, Bob Marley, the recently released Back to Black seem to capture the soul of Amy Winehouse, another singer who died tragically even younger. The role played by the media is also key to Whitney's sadness and depression. Endless questioning about her sexuality, her relationship with her best friend. She says, success doesn't change you, fame does. You have a whole world of people calling your name, and you really don't know them. It's weird. There's a husband in there who's a poor influence and somewhat dwarfed by her talent. Lots of jealousy, coercive control from managers and parents, later a $100 million lawsuit from her father, echoes of Britney Spears or what? Substance abuse right within the family from an early age, health-threatening weight loss, rehab, and the knowledge watching the film that intergenerational tragedy is playing out, with her daughter Bobby Christina dying in a similar way just over 3 years later, aged just 22. I remember sitting late in the afternoon in a near-empty cinema screen weeping as the story of Whitney's life stops wavering and descends towards the end. It's a sobering and sombre watch, a very different but apt companion piece to Back to Black, available to watch for free on ITVX if you can bear the ads, or to rent on all kinds of other streaming platforms. It does what documentary does. It fills in the details and gives you a lot more to think about next time you hear one of those songs.
If she were an artist today, she probably would still be here.
So that's Alan Meban's choice, Whitney, Can I Be Me? As Alan said, I mean, you can get this on various VOD platforms at the minute as we go to record. It's available free on ITVX, so you can seek it out after listening to what we think of the film here. Claire, start with you. I mean, you were just telling us while we were listening to Alan, you're a fan of Whitney Houston, so I don't know, Phil might have a Whitney tattoo somewhere. I don't know, but from listening to before we started to record, seems like you're a big fan of Whitney Houston. You mentioned you've seen a few other documentaries about her, so what did you think of Alan's choice, Whitney, Can I Be Me?
I thought it was good. Like you said, after watching like a few documentaries on Whitney's life, it was very favourable on her father in this documentary, and it didn't really touch on how she was kind of used as a money-making puppet. Whenever she was definitely unwell, there was more of a focus on her relationship breakdown with Bobby Brown and how she sort of transcended into becoming really addicted to drugs to sort of numb the pain. and also a friendship breakdown as well. And that friend seemed to be like her anchor, that sort of kept her sanity. So I do think it is quite an interesting documentary, especially like the archive footage from her tours and the more sort of recent footage of the interviews that have gone on. But I felt that there was something a little bit unauthentic about it, and I think that her father or someone in the team had a lot more creative sort of control than other documentaries I've kind of seen on Whitney Houston's life.
Well, hey, I know we started when we were talking movie news, we were talking about biopics, and you mentioned Amy Winehouse, and we think about that. I mean, we had the Amy documentary, which I think was fantastic, heartbreaking, but fantastic. I think in a similar vein to what we have here, we have a story of the rise of someone who I'll sit here in the studio and admit I never really appreciated in terms of the talent, and it's a really naive, silly thing to say, but when you watch the documentary, particularly kind of the archive footage of early on in her career and kind of that journey, you realise, wow, what a talent Whitney Houston was. And you see then that, you know, that rise of stardom and then the perils of fame, drugs, and the tragic elements that, well, we know unfortunately what happened with Whitney Houston. There is the elements of a relationship, as you mentioned, Claire, with Bobby Brown. I liked it, but I would still say in that sense, we've seen these type of documentaries before. People, maybe like you, Claire, who know more about Whitney Houston will probably find less here. But Nick Broomfield, great documentary filmmaker, one of the iconic documentary filmmakers. So I know he did the Kurt and Courtney documentary from years back, and you used to see much more of him in his work. He was as much of a character, and kind of maybe not to the same regard, but something like Louis Theroux, where you expect him in the documentary. We don't get that as much here. I thought it was a good, solid, well-made documentary, but I think something like the Amy documentary, much, much more superior. And just in terms of the subtle thing it did in that documentary, like at Amy, when we have Amy Winehouse's lyrics popping up on screen, it's just a little bit slicker, but I enjoyed it. Phil, where are you going to weigh in?
I thought this was very good. Much like yourself, I'm not particularly familiar with Whitney Houston outside of the hits. So you have no
tattoo?
No tattoo.
Yet?
Not yet, maybe after the documentary. I thought it was very good. I wouldn't say I enjoyed it, because more than anything I found it to be an intensely lonely experience, watching all of her relationships break down. I think the most poignant moment for me was the only person who seemed to really try to help her was her bodyguard, and more than anything that was a professional obligation. Watching her parents, as you say, they were presented in quite a good light, but still not really helping her. Her relationship with Robin, her relationship with Bobby Brown, all very destructive relationships, and seeing herself self-destructive in herself as well. It was absolutely heartbreaking to watch, and as you say, intercutting that with moments from her 1999 tour, where you just get a blast of raw talent every time she bursts into song. It's incredible, and all the shots of her is an incredibly vibrant young woman, and a lot of very candid shots as well from behind the scenes of her tours, back when things were going well for her. There was a sort of crushingly inevitable feeling to it all. It was a very difficult watch, I thought, but it was a fantastically made documentary. But I haven't seen any other documentaries on her, so I don't know. I can't weigh them against other ones, but I did really think it was great, yeah. One
thing I was intrigued by that I didn't know was how Whitney Houston, this raw talent, how studios tried to didn't really know how to market her. They wanted her to be this type of performer when she wanted just to be her and just be the voice, while they tried to mold her as a pop princess, and that was not Whitney Houston. So interesting things. It's an intriguing choice to kick off the season from Alan Meban. Somebody will be picking another documentary next week. So I think generally from all three films we've discussed tonight, a mixed bag. I don't get a sense any of us are going to be going back and rewatching Unfrosted. I think Claire and Phil might be rushing to the cinema after this recording to go see The Fall Guy for the umpteenth time. I don't know. But that is us out of time. So all that's left for me to do now, thank my two guests in the studio. So thank you very much, Claire.
Thank you, Jim.
Thanks very much, Phil.
Thank you, Jim.
Thanks for watching. We'll be back next week. But for now, until then, Goodbye.